along. There'll be no more sobbing when he starts throbbing his own sweet song. Wake up, you sleepyheads, get up, get out of bed, cheer up the sun.
The Red Robin podcast is powered by Budget Tyres Auto Centre, the only car specialist trusted by supporters, players and club officials. Head down to Leeds Road and check them out for all your motoring needs. Over and out. KR semi-final defeat at the hands of the Wigan Warriors means that the Red and White 2023 Super League campaign is now officially over. For the penultimate podcast of the season, I'm joined once again by former Robin and media pundit Paul Cooke as he shares his views on whether the encounter with the Warriors really was one game too far. Podcast regulars Graham Turner and Dan Craft also give their opinions on the game, and the lads discuss ins and outs as McGuire, Milnes and Kennedy depart and Jai Whitbread arrives. There's also news of Tom Opacic's new 4-year deal and the appointment of Bran Stow. All this and more on this week's Red Robin Podcast Weekly. Before we catch up with Dan and Graham, though, early today I caught up with Paul Cooke. Cookie, great to have you on the Red Robin Podcast Weekly again. Rovers' season coming to an end, of course, on Saturday. 44 points to 12 defeat against the Wigan Warriors. It's been a great season for the Robins, but that final game, it's just frustrating, isn't it? Because it was so close to Old Trafford.
Yeah, and it's a long time before the next game for the players. It's a long time to sit and stew on it, isn't it? And it's not the defeat in itself; it's the manner of the defeat. And that, with all due respect to the players, they didn't really give themselves an opportunity to win the game from the first set of 6 in the game. So, yeah, I'm sure the players will have a real long off season and a long break before they can get back on the rugby field.
Yeah, I mean, what do you put such a bad start down to, Cookie? I mean, the preparation, we're led to believe was great, although we'll talk a little bit about the build-up to the game the week previously, but the warm-up looked good. They looked pumped up. They had a great run of results into the game. Some supporters said it was a game too far, but I don't think it can be as simple as that, can it?
Well, I don't buy into that either. I mean, you don't get to where they got to as a group of players by accident. And when they managed to get to the semi-final before 80 minutes from Old Trafford, that's not luck. I was a bit surprised by what Willie Peters said after the game in terms of that's how they trained some of the week. I'm a firm believer that in big games, the first 4 or 5 sets in games, you know exactly what you're doing, where you're kicking the ball off if you're kicking off, where the first 5 carries from Wigan are going to be, and there's no real excuse for 𝗓𝗂𝗏𝗏 starting the way they did. And the 3v2 created down the short side where Ryan Hall has to knock the ball down in the opening set of 6, which then leads to them not having the ball for 8 minutes. There will be some really harsh lessons learned, I'm sure of it. But big games, for me, the first 5 sets of 6, the one in the video room and the one with knowing exactly what you're going to do and who's going to do it with and without the football.
Yeah, let's talk about, what Willie Peters said. He did say, didn't he, that the part of the week the players aren't trained great. Last week we did see news breaking that Danny McGuire's been let go from his contract. There was also then talk of Rhys Kennedy, Rowan Milnes departing. I don't think it was anything that surprised people. I think it was more so the talk of when it was and the fact it was broke in the lead up to such an important game. And you didn't see anything from Wigan. There was no news from Wigan coming out, was there? There was tight as anything. And do you think that can derail the preparations in such an important game?
Yeah, it can because there's players at the club that will have a good relationship with Danny. There's other players at the club that couldn't care less, that don't have a great relationship with him because not everybody gets on with everybody. The Rhys Kennedy one's an interesting one because the players have friends within the group. Some more tight-knit than others. And if he'd have known that there was whispers of him leaving the club, then that could have affected the players. But I don't buy into it because players move on from clubs every year and coaches eventually move on from clubs at some point in their careers. The McGuire one's an interesting one because he obviously has 2 years to run on his contract. Some things gone awry there at the club where the relationship's broken down on, or whatever it may be in terms of honesty or trust or whatever it is. But for the players to not perform to a level which is akin to a semi-final game, then I'm not sure that there is an excuse that outside whispers can affect that.
Yeah, I mean, and just staying on McGuire, I mean, sometimes it's a relationship that might not necessarily broke down on a personal level. It might be on a professional basis where Peters just needs something else around him. I mean, it's all going to come out in the wash. Apparently, Danny McGuire is not happy, but like I said, that's all going to come out in the wash. But I suppose when your assistant coach has been informed that he's no longer wanted and you're going into the second or potentially the biggest game of the season, it's just not. Psychologically, you can't, even though they might be the utmost professionals, you still think there's that niggling doubt at the back of the mind that this isn't great for the setup.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more with that. As a player, it's a reason, I guess, but it shouldn't be made as an excuse for the performance that the players then dished up. But but something has gone awry. No question about that. Something has gone wrong on a level, a professional level or a personal level with Danny McGuire, because if he's not happy that he's moving on from the club, then ultimately the club's made the decision, and if he's not happy about it, then as you say, it will come out in the wash. It's a really strange one for me, because when you look at that Danny McGuire and Willie Peters, particularly after games when you've seen them, particularly the semi-final at Headingley, it looked like the relationship was a really good one. So, the club have moved on. Obviously, they've got in the guy from the Rabbitohs, and he's coming over to head up the rugby department. They've been 5 years in post there, so the club certainly isn't going backwards with the decision that they've made. But Danny McGuire is obviously pretty upset by it. Yeah.
Another thing that surprised me, Cookie, and it's not something I've seen all season, was Willie Peters on the touchline. I mean, and so early on in the game as well. And for me, that almost smacked of desperation. And don't get me wrong, the Robins were in a desperate situation at 18-0 down after 13 minutes. But as a player, as a former player, if you ever saw your coach on the touchline when you're not accustomed to seeing him there, does that inspire you, or does that make you go back into your shell?
Yeah, I think it does. I think when he comes down at 18-0, the game's done. And I know it's stupid for me to say that, but at 18-0 in big games, there's no way you're coming back against a Wigan team at home. He had to get down to the touchline to show something, to get a message on to the players, whether that was him stood at the sideline or he sent messages on with 𝗵𝗏𝗏𝗏, which probably then happened. But, at 18-0, the game's done. And as a player, you would know that as a player on the field. And ultimately, for 8 of them 13 minutes, when they went 18-0 down, they didn't have the football other than to kick the ball off, Schneider. And even then, he kicked the ball out on the full twice in the game. When you talk about, an old coach of mine once said, when you're in a hole, stop digging. And 𝗓𝗏𝗏𝗏 just didn't stop digging. They dug themselves a deeper hole, and they had no way to get out of it. And I think Willie Peters coming down, whilst it stinks of desperation, like you say, ultimately it was because he will know that in a big game at 18-0, there's very little chance of his team coming back.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned Snyder there, and of course he's going to the Penrith Panthers. I mean, what a fantastic journey that is for him to go to the NRL champions. He didn't have the best game. I do think he took a head knock early on, and it did seem to affect his performance. And there's no doubt he does have a few errors in him, but he's still a young, up-and-coming player who's still got a lot to learn. But I think that early head knock, for whatever reason, just seemed to put him off his game. And we saw him later on towards the end getting into a bit of a kerfuffle with Liam Farrell. And the Rovers just seem to do a lot of things that Derry Rovers like. They just seem to move away from the game plan, a bit of the coolness, like I said, Willie Peters on the touchline. And ultimately, as good as Wigan was, I just don't think Hull Kingston Rovers stuck to anything that they'd been good at, especially in the previous 6 games where they'd won them all.
Wigan didn't have to be brilliant. They didn't have to be brilliant. Once it's 18-0, they didn't have to be any good. Kingston Rovers gifted 18 points, basically. And even then, after that, when you're chasing your tail and when you're chasing the game, you're prone to making more errors. And Wigan would then capitalise on it. The start of the game and start of both halves is something that I'm sure that the players and Willie Peters will have nightmares about for a long time. When you've got Schneider, as you say, with the head knock, but kicking the ball out on the full twice, you've got players making errors that we've just not seen in the last 6 or 8 weeks of Hull Kingston Rovers. So it's a really harsh lesson in a really big game. And whilst the season is successful because they finished in the top 4 and made the Challenge Cup, ultimately the 2 biggest games of the season was lost in the opening sets of the game. One at Wembley where they give a penalty away Rhys Kennedy and then they drop the football through Rhys Kennedy, and the next time they get the ball, they give it. I think they gave possession away to Lee when they had the football. Ryan Hall gets a tackle from Asiata, which is not been deemed as illegal in the semi-final. So why Hull KR want to run in and cause a kerfuffle at Wembley? Then they go 2-0 down. They didn't have the ball for the opening 4 or 5 minutes at Wembley, and they haven't had it for 8 minutes. There's some really big lessons for the players and the coaching staff to learn. That whilst it's a successful season, the 2 biggest games of the season, they've just not turned up in the game early.
Yeah, and it's, credit to the Robins though, Cookie. They did manage to find a way back into the game in that second half. And I know, from the supporters in the seats and in the concourse, once they went in at 18-6, we thought, what, we've maybe weathered a bit of a storm here. An early try, game on.
I think Willie Peters would have been delighted at 18-6 at the break. I was watching it delighted that they've only gone in 18-6 down after they've conceded 3 tries in 13 minutes. They then got themselves back into the game in the 27 minutes, prior to half time. But then they've come out and do exactly the same. I dare say Willie Peters hasn't gone in the changing room and fixed a few things up and asked them to go out and perform in exactly the same way as they've started the game. The first try, second half was always going to be massive. And once Wigan got it, you saw them racking up a score because Hull KR would then, try and chase the game. And as I say, it leaves a sour taste in your mouth a little bit as a Hull KR supporter because you desperately want the team to perform better than that in the big games. I know they lost at Wembley by 1 point in Golden Point, but for me, the lessons of Wembley should have been learned before the semi-final and starting the game in a poor manner, and that's clearly not been the case.
Yeah, and we saw whatever Willie Peters did say at halftime go out the window. Wigan score straight away, and then Jordan Abdul comes on. Walker gets hooked. Mikey Lewis goes to full-back, and then it almost seems to be like get as many players out there who can try and make something happen. And then
and that's going away from what's worked for the club over the last 6 weeks, isn't it? You can't blame Willie Peters for trying to get the attacking players onto the field and putting Lewis to fullback because it's worked in the past. You can understand. And again, you mentioned that word when he came down to the touchline, it's desperation. Well, then it was desperation throwing as many attacking players out there as possibly could. But ultimately, the game plan then is out the window, isn't it? You're just asking them to play a little bit of ad-lib rugby league, and that makes you more prone to errors.
Yeah, and Wigan definitely exploited that, going on to score a few more tries, ending the game 42 points to 12. The one thing that Willie Peters did say is that his job is to make 10 Rovers being from good into great. What you would say is that Rovers have been very good this season. They've come up short when it's mattered most, and the departure of players like Rowan Milnes, Rhys Kennedy, Ethan Ryan, Sam Wood, with the incoming of Tyrone May, 𝗓𝗂𝗱𝗴𝗏, Oliver Gildart. Is that the shift? Are those the players who will take us from good to great, do you think?
Well, ultimately now, and I have this conversation a lot with the guy who I do TalkSport with, Mark Wilson. It's one thing having money, it's another thing spending it wisely. So it's okay that the club have got the backers that they've got and the board of directors they've got, but they've got to get it right with recruitment, because Willie Peters will be under pressure to get it right with recruitment. And recruitment is the top and bottom of the way you keep your job in professional rugby league. The signings that they've made, Tyrone May particularly is a great signing for me. I think he's been fantastic for the Dragons the last 6 or 8 weeks himself. you can understand Rowan Milnes going out, leaving to go to Castleford, because ultimately that boy needs to play and play regular for him to find his footing in the game. And when you look at 𝗕𝗂𝗱𝗴𝗏 and 𝗕𝗓𝓷𝓼, Opacic signing a new deal, the club is certainly moving forward in the right direction. There's no question about that. And as Willie has already alluded to, it's his job then to mould the team into a more consistent team, not just a top 4 team, but not just a Challenge Cup finalist team or a semi-finalist in the grand final. You've got to then try and get them over the line, and that is where the difficult job starts, isn't it? Because it's okay being in them big games, but winning them is a different story.
Yeah, and I suppose as well, Cookie, this season ramps up the pressure on Peters even more next season, doesn't it? Because the expectation will be to go on there. Yeah,
that's right. The level of expectation goes up with the signings. One, the signings that they're making, and two, the previous season. So getting back to Wembley is a dream for the supporters, and going to Old Trafford would be a dream to see Kingston Rovers supporters there, wouldn't it? So, it's a big job. It's a great position for Willie to be in, because ultimately, the club have paid off Rhys Kennedy. They've released Rowan Milnes from his contract. They're bringing in other players, Jai Whitbread coming in, and 𝗕𝗂𝗱𝗏𝗏 and 𝗕𝗓𝓷𝓼. And as you said, they're not going to be coming in any cheaper than what's going out. There's no question about that. So the pressure then starts on, well, we're spending all this money on all these players. We don't just want to be a top 4 team and in the Challenge Cups. We want to be winning these things. So it's going to be a really interesting off-season and start to 2024 for 𝗕𝗂𝗱𝗏𝗏 and Willie Peters, and it's an exciting one.
Yeah, and speaking about Willie Peters in the off-season, he said in his post-game press conference he's going to spend some of his time using his contacts to go into football and rugby union and other sports to obviously better himself as a coach, look at different approaches, etc., etc. I mean, you've been involved in coaching as well, Cookie. How important is that to look at other sports and get yourself out the rugby league bubble?
Yeah, massive, because whichever organisation you go into and look at. I was fortunate enough to go into, Worcester Warriors when I was involved in rugby union, and Leicester Tigers when Richard Cockrell was the coach there. So there's always something that you can pick up that you can take back to your club, and something that you might want to, one thing. I'll give you an example. One thing that I picked up from Leicester Tigers was when they did skills and ball handling or team runs, the coach had a tennis ball on him, and while they're going back after a set of 6, if you like, to start the next set, he chucked the tennis ball to one of the players who chuck it to another one, and it just kept the hand-eye coordination in, and the session became a little bit more intense because there was no break in it. So there's always something that you can pick up from different organisations. It may well be the mental side, or the strength and conditioning side for Willie Peters at a football club. It could be anything, but it's really important to train himself as well.
Yeah, definitely. And last night, Bevan French announced as Man of Steel. Yep. I think are you on the voting panel, Cookie?
Yes, I am. Yeah, and I find it really, really harsh on the people that vote on it.
Tell us how it works.
I watched last night, and I watched the build up to it. And the people that are from St Helens are thinking Jack Welsby should get it. The people from Wigan think Bevan French should get it. The people from Catalan think Tom Johnson should get it. Well, I thought Bevan French should have got it, and I'm on the panel. And you vote on a 1, 2, 3 basis. 3 points for the top, 2 points for second, 3 points for third. Every week that you vote on a game. And I'm not sure that there's a fairer way to do it. So I take some of the criticism quite personal, really. But ultimately, you get people from different clubs or that are associated with the club that only back the player from their club. So for everyone who was on the TV last night from St Helens thought Jack Welsby should get it. Well, I'll tell you now, if Sean Kenny-Dowell was there, I'd still think Bevan French was the Man of Steel, and I like Kingston Rovers. Or if Danny Houghton was on there, I'd still think it was Bevan French. I think people are just rose-tinted glasses at times, and I'm not sure there's a fairer way to do it. And if there is, then give us a solution, and maybe we can try it. But try not to criticise when you're not involved in.
No, I suppose the only other way is doing it. You do a fan vote, or you just get people sat around a table saying who they think should have it. But that either way is not the most equitable way of getting the winner, is it?
Yeah, because you forget about rounds 1, 2, and 3, and you remember the last 6 weeks of Hull Kingston Rovers performances, but you won't remember that Rhys Kennedy was the best player in the game when they played Wakefield at home, which he was, by the way. I voted on it. I thought Rhys Kennedy was the best player for Hull KR when they played Wakefield. But you then become clouded by the recent results and the best player recently. When ultimately the best player of the competition has been doing it since round 1 or 2 or 3.
Yeah, and there's no doubt, Bevan French, Jack Wells, but sometimes you are picking Peter or Paul, aren't you? Because they're at such a high level and the performances are so consistent that.
And then players are often at a disadvantage because they've got so many superstars at their club. So when you watch Wigan weekly, Liam Farrell is an 8, 9 out of 10 every week.
Yeah.
When you watch them. And then when you watch Jai Field often, or Abbas Miski throws in 4 tries, and you've got to pick him as man of the match. So it's really interesting that Brodie Croft wins it last year in a Salford team that was outstanding. But ultimately, he's a big fish in a smaller pond than anything that's at Wigan.
Yeah, and when you reflect on the season as a whole, Cookie, I know we've got the grand final on Saturday, which is a mouthwater in Thai, really. How do you reflect on the season as a whole?
Yeah, from a Hull Kingston Rovers point of view, it's success. It's moving forward. I look forward to seeing them and what they can do next year. For Hull FC, it's not been a great one, has it? They've got to make some vast improvements in terms of consistency and consistency.
Dan, Graham, great to have you back on the podcast. I mean, Cookie talks a lot of sense. He's someone I could spend probably a couple of hours over a few pints talking rugby league about. I mean, if we cast our mind back to Saturday and that defeat to the Wigan Warriors, Graham, I think most Robin supporters would have probably took a defeat. I suppose the manner of defeat is what's frustrated a lot of supporters.
Yeah, look, it's always going to be a tough place to go, even in the regular season. But when you ramp it up a notch with playoff intensity, and yeah, I think most fans would have gone thinking we're in the best shape possible to give it a good go. Certainly with winning 6 on the bounce, a relatively clean bill of health on the injury front, not putting square pegs in round holes. We probably had our best 17 out there. In the shirts, so yeah, in that respect, I thought we had everything there for the taking to give us a good opportunity to give it a good show of ourselves. But then the whistle went and it all went tits up.
Tits, yeah, that's one way to put it. I mean, Dan, Graham's just everything was pointing towards I don't know, Challenge Cup semi-final performance, close game. Ebb and flow, one team might win it by a couple of points, a drop goal, golden point, whatever, and it never materialised. And it's hard to put your finger on why that happened. Ultimately, being 18 points down after 13 minutes didn't help, did it? Did you put anything though into the build-up where the news emanating about Dan McGuire departing? We had Rhys Kennedy, Rowan Milnes. It just seemed to be, of all the weeks to break that news, why did it have to be the week that we was going into a Super League playoff semi-final?
Yeah, I think for me it was we were going into the game with more hope rather than expectation, weren't we? With regards to the news that was breaking, I don't think it'll have affected. I think they'll have known that Danny McGuire was leaving long before that. If something's gone on within the club, we're not party to it. It'll all come out in the wash eventually. There's people speculating and whatnot. But I think it'll have been known if the rumours are true that Peter's done see eye to eye with McGuire, they're going to feed off that in training. But that'll have been going on for weeks, and we've been playing outstanding, haven't we, for the past few weeks? I think the main thing for me was on the bus on the way there, we were saying, the atmosphere is going to be electric. We just need to sort of compose ourselves. They're going to come at us, weather the storm for the first quarter of an hour, first quarter of the game, even just weather the storm, and we'll be in a game and we'll just match them. Obviously, that didn't happen, did it? When you're 18-0 down, it's after 12 minutes, that's it, isn't it? The game's gone at that point. We might have close to just going out and going to the pub, to be honest. Going to go sit in that Red Robin around the corner. But yeah, I think the build-up wasn't ideal, but yeah, there's nothing we can do about it now, is there?
No, and Graham, when you look back at the game, like we said, 18 points down after 13 minutes. I mean, credit to the Robins, they did get back into the game, didn't they? 21 minutes, Rovers going for a try, and then it sort of, they abated the Wigan attack, and we thought, hang on, actually, yeah, we've got off to a shit start, but we're getting into the game, we're building into it, we've got some points on the board, we've stopped Wigan from scoring. Half-time, yeah, Willie Peters, it's unusual to see him on the touchline, but if he rips into them, relays the game plan, tells them to get back to what they used to doing, we'll come out in the second half. If we can get an early try, or we can at least stop Wigan from scoring early, you're thinking game on here, and then, Wigan go and do exactly what they did in the very first half at the start of the game, and you just, you're left scratching your head at how a team who've been able to put themselves in so many great positions, and how many times we've seen Rovers be the first team to score after the half time, in the second half of a game early on, and for whatever reason, a brain fart from Schneider. It just, like you said, we was all sat there, weren't we, just scratching our heads. We went in at half time full of hope, and it was just took away from us in that second half, so early on.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpick there, John. Thanks for that. Again, just jumping back to what Cookie was saying there, and again, like you, I could sort of listen to him and talk rugby league all afternoon. I just think he talks very well and comes up with some unique experience as an ex-player to bring an insight into what for us might seem quite black and white. Actually, there's a few grey areas with it, but yeah.
There's no black and white on this podcast.
Well, sorry, yeah, red and white then, and some pink areas then. Getting back into it, 18-6, it created that glimmer of hope. What we needed to happen then was, first of all, not to let Wigan score again, which we managed to do that. But I still don't think we had enough attacking ball to create too many more chances after that. And I think you mentioned on the interview with Cookie there about going in at 18-6 down, and we're happy, and we were, that it wasn't 30 points to 6. I think that was the overriding feeling I had, was that it wasn't more to us. We managed to get back to that scramble that's been pretty good for us over the recent weeks and stemmed that tide. But I still don't think we had enough creativity. And then, yeah, like you say, they're in at half time. I'm sure there'll have been some words spoken, probably by the players, who will know that level of performance wasn't good enough, and how we can expect to compete at semi-final level after that first 15 minutes start. There'll have been a lot of soul searching, no doubt, about performances there. But to then repeat the same exercise at the start of the second half and expect a different result is mind-blowing that we let that happen. And again, just jumping back to what Cookie said there about being in control of those first plays where you're kicking off, you know exactly where you want to put the ball, you know exactly where you want your numbers to be at, you know exactly how you want to attack those first 4 or 5 drives, get a good set and get the ball back, and then start from there and start to play. We just didn't do that first or second half, and that, you take it's going to sound really, really stupid, but you take away the points they scored in the first 10, 13 minutes of both sides of half time. Scoreboard wise, it was pretty even game, and that's where I think if we'd have been able to compete in that 15 minutes in the first half and go toe to toe with Wigan and not let them score the 18 points and build ourselves into the game, not saying the result would have changed, but it has certainly been a different level of performance, and it would have been that a score or two either way that you were alluding to there. But we just didn't let that happen first half, and then, as I say, compounded it in that first 5 to 10 minutes of the second half when they got another couple in, and then it was definitely game over because we absolutely needed that first try in the second half. There was no way of coming back, and you could visibly see everybody draining after that first one went in. That was it. Any hope we had was just completely snuffed out there and then.
Yeah, Dan, there was, I suppose ultimately there was too many of our big players who needed to perform just ultimately didn't perform, and just seems strange, doesn't it? Why they didn't perform?
Yeah, I think you could probably look at who could in that side put their hand up and say, "I played well today." And it's not a lack of quality or a lack of effort. I don't think you can question the effort of the players. I think it was a game too far. Probably maybe Sam Luckley again stood out for me. Somebody that had a decent enough game. But it was that perfect stuff. I think we've got to sort of look at Wigan though. You're doing them a disservice, really. They played like the Wigan that was probably one of their better performances of the season, one of their best performances, wasn't it? And it's just that perfect storm playing against one of our worst performances of the season. You look at like 𝗟𝗡𝗄𝗏, I thought he was just unplayable. The man's a freak, isn't he? He's just unplayable.
I don't know though, Dan. I'll tell you what. Like, it feels like did they have to push the gate open, or did we open it for them? Because they didn't. I think there was a lot of opportunities where, you know, how many times did we see our defence? You could almost see it where they had a 4-5 man overlap,
yeah,
and they're setting up a play, and it was so obvious in the stands to see the overlap and see the man. And for whatever, Rovers just couldn't read the plays. Now, don't get me wrong, Wigan haven't got that by fortune, have they? They've got that because that's part of their play set. But Rovers just didn't seem to be able to respond to it. And I just wonder why Rovers they just looked so off the pace at times during the game.
Yeah, it's like you said, John, you can see it from the stands. I think there was two or three of their tries who sat there, and at the play of the ball, you sort of went, try.
Yeah,
you knew this. And people have been quick to jump on Senior on Twitter and Facebook and whatnot. But for me, Opacic had probably his worst game in a Rovers shirt. Again, not effort, not quality. He's just had a poor game. People have poor games. And 𝗓𝗏𝗏 didn't help him out. I think that whole edge just seemed they just couldn't number up. It's almost like they'd never met before. I don't know. Something went horribly wrong, didn't it, on Saturday? It's in the past now, isn't it? I mean, like Schneider had an awful game, but he took his shirt off to give it to somebody at the end of the game, and he was mummified, wasn't he? He was all bandaged up. He wasn't right, was he? So, can you put it down to that? Probably. It's one of them. And there's probably a number of reasons why players didn't have the best games of their careers, but it is what it is now. We're going to have to learn from it. That's what the big sides do. You look at Wigan, they turned up putting a professional performance, and like Graham said, the first 20 minutes either side of half time, either half, the first 20 minutes of each half, they just terrorised us, didn't they? And probably for the last 20 minutes of the game, they probably felt set the foot off the throat a bit. Have one eye on Catalans next week, didn't they?
Yeah, and Graham, there was, desperation, panic stations, whatever you want to call it. The first try straight after they come out for the second half. Jack Walker gets hooked. John Abdul comes on, and it's almost, using a football analogy, it's almost like get all your strikers on, get all your creative, and see what happens. And I think Willie Peters was going for like a Hail Mary, wasn't he? Try get everyone on and see what happens. Unfortunately, that didn't really materialise until the 76th or 70th minute when Jez Litton goes in for the try. John Abdul creates it. Nothing really much happened attacking wise before that, and really it was Wigan who capitalised on the Robins. I don't know, poor defence, poor decision making. Like Dan said, it's nothing to do with a lack of effort. It's not to do with a lack of desire. It was, I don't know if it's something to do between the ears or whatever it is, but it just didn't work out from in the end, did it?
No, and again, just jumping back to what you were talking about with Cookie about the learning opportunities that this is going to bring, and I'm sure players individually will learn things about themselves and Are there things individually they can do better? The coaching staff, Willie Peters, what happened in preparation during the week? Is there any contributing factors to that? And look, I think apart from one game, we're going to have played the same number of games we have this season. That for us was the Challenge Cup final. So for them, they're going to have beaten up bodies. They've played as many games. They've competed at the top of the league all season long. I think there's a lot to be said between the ears around the mentality of how we approach these type of games. And look, Wigan notoriously have been in these big games a lot more than we have, and that's the bit we've got to learn how to adapt to. We are going in the right direction, no question, but just on the big games, with the Challenge Cup final, again, we all felt that something wasn't quite right there. We didn't play the 𝗓𝗂𝗗𝗏 way. We didn't go and attack Lee, and we've shown twice that if we do attack them, what happens to them since that day. So I think there was a little bit of resentment, regret, whatever you want to call it, after that game. And then the same with this one. I don't think that was a 𝗓𝗂𝗏𝗏 performance that we've been used to this season. We beat Wigan twice this season, so we know it can be done. And I agree with Dan. Sometimes Jai Field is unplayable, but actually we've shown on 2 occasions we can play him, and we can outperform them on those big occasions. Albeit one was the first game of the season, but we had that semi-final against them and showed the mental determination, the physical determination, just the sheer doggedness to get a result on that day. We didn't have any of that on Saturday. And like you said, the effort was there. I'm sure it was. Skill levels were not as good as that we've seen them. There was drop balls left, right, and centre. There was mistakes galore. Like you say, Schneider kicking out in the full not once but twice, dropping the ball in good attacking position. So lots of things went wrong, which I don't think, what was going on behind the scenes in the week caused Schneider to kick out on the full twice. That's a mental thing. That's not anything to do with Danny McGuire, Rhys Kennedy, etc. That is between the ears for me.
Yeah. Dan, I'm going to throw this out there. Do you think as supporters, maybe we need to change our mentality as well? Because, it's fantastic atmosphere. The Robins supporters got a right behind them. Even full-time whistle when we was, getting heavily beaten. We're up there, we're singing, we're stood up, we're chanting. Are the players in a kind of bubble where no matter what, they can't do wrong? I don't know, should we be a bit more critical or actually is that the wrong way to go? Because to get to that next level, I suppose you need a certain, a level of critique. You need to be a certain level of, threat, danger, where if you don't get it wrong, you're going to get your ass kicked kind of thing. And no doubt Willie Peters is doing that in the changing rooms, but or do you think the supporters are right to just back the boys, keep supporting no matter what?
I don't know. I think it's 2 sides to that, isn't it? There's the side where do you accept mediocrity, and we finished 4th, we got to the cup final, that's it.
And that's what I mean, Dan. Is that enough, or should we be? No, that's not enough.
No, I don't think I think we should be expected to do more. You sort of look at the attitude of the ticket sales building up to the game. I know Wigan sold a lot on the day, didn't they? And it was good atmosphere. It did actually turn out a good crowd in Wigan in the end, but there's almost like the cup final, this cup semi-final against them. There's that attitude, we'll just get tickets for the final because we'll get there. Surely we want to be in that sort of position going forward, not just loving the fact that we've reached a semi-final. How great we've beat Batley and Salford to get to a semi-final. This is a pinnacle of our season. We need, if we're going to reach that stage, though, we need to be winning stuff. Like if we'd have won the cup final, puts us on the map as a team that wins trophies, doesn't it? We're going to win a trophy. We're in semi-finals of the playoffs. I think we need to. I don't know. I think it's because we've been in this sort of stage for the past, since I've been supporting Rovers, the league game, if you remember, the drop goals.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for the PowerPoint.
Yeah, I'll send you that over. But you sort of look, we've been steadily building. We got knocked back with relegation, but at the same time, we've been steadily building, and we've never really had much to cheer about apart from a 4th place finish, and that's it. So I think it all goes on next season, doesn't it? We need to build, and if next season we finish 6th and get knocked out in the Challenge Cup quarter final, that's a failure, isn't it? And as fans, we can't be going, oh, but at least we made the playoffs. We got to the playoffs. We need to be going, well, why didn't we finish 4 higher this coming season? What's the reason?
So that's the point, I suppose, Graham, isn't it? Is Tyrone May, 𝗕𝗂𝗗𝗖𝗔𝗦𝗧, Oliver Gildart, are those the players, Jai Whitbread, throw him into the equation, are those the players who are going to take us from a Challenge Cup final defeat, Super League semi-final playoff defeat? Are those the players who are going to be the difference between us winning trophies next season or not? Because Willie Peters is going to be under a lot of pressure next season to deliver on, equally what he's done this season and improve on that as well.
Yeah, just before I jump into that one, John, just going back to the question you asked Dan there, and I just want to throw out the point there about if there's a danger with fans of how criticism comes across. So you know what message boards are like, and the drivel that's put on there is not constructive. Usually, 90% of the time, it's just usually nonsense, and that can I don't know any clubs in any sports off the top of my head. You may correct me, but I don't know any clubs in any sports where the fans have voiced their concerns that much that it's had a positive effect on the team. It's just created divisions. It's separated the unity of the club going in one direction. It creates tension, unnecessary pressure. Look, players know when they've played well, and players know when they've not performed so well. They do the video analysis. It's all picked up during the week. We're supporters of the club, not we support the club. And look, things don't always go your way. I get that. There's ups, there's downs. We follow OKR. What more do we expect? But I don't think that there's a natural platform, constructive platform that fans have got. It comes across as negativity. It comes across as sometimes personal abuse to people. Again, what improvements is that going to make to any player receiving personal abuse? So, yeah.
I was going to say, Greg, as well, just to clarify what I was saying. I totally agree with 100%. Any personal abuse, anything like that, no place for it in the game. I suppose what I mean is supporters, as a supporter base, it's about our expectation should be raised. Effort, determination, all that. We love it. We applaud it. We celebrate it. That's what we sing about. It's now that next level of, no, as supporters, we should be, our aspiration should be more. It's about us saying, actually, yeah, it's good to be in a Challenge Cup final, but actually, we need to get to a point where we're expected to be in a Challenge Cup final. We need, and now that manifests itself in a lot of different ways. And unfortunately, you're right, Graham, that manifests itself sometimes in abuse, personal criticism, which is unwarranted, unfounded, and it's not all Kingston Rovers, and we'd never want to see that. I just think as a supporter base, sometimes, we need to lift ourselves up and we need to, we cheer the boys, we celebrate and we cheer effort, and it's just, I don't know, is that part of the next step of going on to actually them winning something?
Yeah, I mean, you look at what I mean, I'm going to sound a bit stupid now, but St Helens early in the season, obviously World Cup champions, they've not made a grand final. They've not made a Challenge Cup finalist. They're expecting it. So how do they react as a club? What do they go away and do in the the Leeds Rhinos of this world, albeit not for a few years, but consistently up at that? What is it that they're doing that we haven't been to get to that next level and consistently at that next level? So I'm sure there's lessons to be learned of things that we can do. But I think our job as supporters is to support the team, the club, as best we can. And we showed that on what we can do on Saturday. Look, it wasn't our day. We then, I think, have to reset our benchmark of where we pitch ourselves, because look where we were 2 years ago. We were bottom of the league. Mm-hmm. So to go to fourth in the league in 2 years and a Challenge Cup final and a semi-final of the, one game away from Old Trafford, that's building success. One game doesn't define long-term success or not, but building in the right direction does. So jumping forward to your original question, John, about those players, And you look at the players who have gone out and the ones that have come in, and have we replaced with better? Is always my question that I ask. Is that better than what we've got now? If so, great. It should improve the squad. If not, what have we done it for? And I think the names that you've reeled off there, the Whitbreads of this world, the 𝗕𝗂𝗱𝗴𝗲𝗁, the Tyrone Mays, Oliver Gildarts, etc. On paper, the names, I believe, are better than the ones we're letting go. The challenge is going to be if they can be moulded into playing the 𝗕𝗂𝗗𝗴𝗲 way that Peters wants to, and if they fit in with that and perform to the levels that we know of them and the reasons why we bought them, then I don't see any reason why we shouldn't be, knocking about these semi-finals and finals and really challenging for those trophies come end of season.
Yeah, I mean, Dan, you reel off them names, and all of a sudden, you see the departures, and you go, do you know what? They are a step up, aren't they? In terms of not only improving the squad, but actually we're getting players who are leaving the side are not the ones who are necessarily featuring in the first team, but the players who are coming in are actually then going to challenge the ones who are in the first team. So that creates, huge competition there. There's still, a lot of supporters are questioning the 𝗕𝗂𝗗𝗏 Kennedy, Whitbread situation, one in, one out. Obviously one player quota. We only had one quota spot, so we had to release Kennedy. Kennedy's released a statement on Instagram saying how he didn't want to leave. He was quite happy here. Whitbread coming in from a relegated Wakefield side. He's played more minutes, although he's played less games. I don't know what's your opinion. Is it an upgrade? Is it a downgrade? Is it equal, or is it a suck it and see?
If we can keep him on the pitch, it's an upgrade, isn't it? It just seems to think he's had a bit of a bad luck with injuries, hasn't he? So that's going to be the key thing. With Kennedy, it's difficult. And again, you're not party to what's gone on behind the scenes, with dealings. Have Rovers said something along the lines of, look, Reece, you're not going to be short of offers. There will be a club that'll pick you up. We'll square you up your last year of your contract or a certain amount of money. And he's gone, yeah, fair enough. I don't think he's been told you're rubbish, you're leaving, because I don't think that'd ever be the case. I think he's start of the season, he did cop a bit of flack, didn't he? But come back end of the season, he's been one of our standout forwards. He has, and you can't knock his effort levels. I think start of the season again, effort levels, he was trying too hard, if anything. He was trying to do too much. But I don't know. You see Whitbread, you think he's got a bit of pace for a big lad as well. He sort of fits the Willie Peters mould of a forward, doesn't he? So we'll see. And going back to what you said about the effort levels and the 𝗕𝗂𝗗𝗏𝗏 way, that's the interesting thing for me. What we'll see with these players that he's brought in, if he can get on playing this way with the effort levels and non-stop, the defence has been excellent this year, and if he can get on playing that way, we have got some good players there.
Yeah, and Graham, you look at Kennedy, he didn't have a great start to the season. He got slowly into it. He got into it, and to be fair, from the final third of the season, we probably saw the best of him. Towards the end of the season, he didn't feature as much. The only comparison I suppose you can make to Jai Whitfield is that the two props. Other than that, there is no comparison because they're two completely different types of prop, aren't they? And Jai Whitbread seems to go more into the mould of a George King in terms of he'll do a lot of minutes. He can run with the ball, can do maybe a little offload, and he'll do a bit of defensive work. Whereas Kennedy was quite specific in the job he did. So I suppose it shows you the route Willie Peters is going down in terms of the type of prop he wants.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think one important point to make, Johno, is that Reece Kennedy was Peters' signing. Mm-hmm. So he brought him in with Opacic at the same time. And if you remember, he announced the 3 signings all at once, and Kennedy was one of those. And it's interesting that somebody who we thought 12 months ago would be the fit for his team, and brought him over from Australia, is now sort of packing his bags out of the club, and wish him well, obviously, to wherever he goes. but he must want some, he must have a certain mould of things he wants his prop forwards to do. And I don't know, does Whitbread feel the bell a bit more than Kennedy? He obviously must think that way, otherwise the transaction wouldn't have happened. And again, I use that word as a fan, the transaction, in the fact that we're not party to what he wants out of players and what he sees the mould being for players to do, and recognising that, can he do that? Dan intimated there that he's got a bit of pace about him. We haven't seen that from Kennedy. Like you say, he's been very specific in what he's been on to do, and it's always been in relatively short blocks of time. There's no way he's playing 30 minutes at a go, something like that. So, yeah, is it more effort based? Is it more physical based? I don't know. Don't know what he wants unless he releases the blueprints of what his forwards should look like in terms of their performances. It's hard to sort of stick exact reasons on it, but he's obviously made a decision, and this sort of, to me, demonstrates, I think I've read it a couple of times already, but ruthlessness in what he's doing, in Willie Peters, in his sort of single-mindedness around what he wants the club to achieve under his stewardship. And we've seen it before with players earlier on in the season when he axed Manchella and had a word with him. He's axed Ethan Ryan before, etc. He's made those tough calls that we've talked about on this podcast before. And mostly they've worked out pretty well, for us. So again, this is one of those tough calls where, look, we're going to have to judge this one next season and see what we get. If there's an improvement in it, then we'll forget this conversation ever happened and say what a good acquisition that was by Willie Peters. But yeah, there's a few surprises in there in terms of the whole scenario. But we can't judge it in the here and now until we get round to sort of February, March time next year, and he's playing regularly, hopefully, in the red and white shirt and doing what he's been brought in to do.
Yeah, and Willie Peters was determined to get his man. I mean, they've paid up Rhys Kennedy's second year of his contract, and it's not been wildly reported as well, but they paid a transfer fee for Jai Whitbread as well. So they've put some money on the table for him. Danny McGuire, sad to see him go?
Yeah, I think he deserves a better send-off than how it's been in the report in the press and all the rumours, doesn't he? Don't forget, look at back in the last season, what he did with the young lads. When we took 16 men to Hull, we took a gang of kids to Wigan, didn't we? And, he has helped out the club massively, hasn't he? He's been a good servant to the club. I think it'd be better if he'd have gone on better terms, but I don't know, was he in the Tony Smith way of thinking, and Danny and Willie Peters didn't like that? You don't know, do you? Is that the way he's looking? I think he deserved a better send off, but we'll see what happens. Just hopefully we've got somebody in that's a good replacement. Let's see what's happening. So I don't think it's Kenny Dowell, is it, going to be his assistant? And Lovegrove's coming in to work with the kids, isn't he? So let's see who comes in.
Yeah, so the current setup is obviously Rhys Lovegrove is coming to take in the vacant academy first team coaching role. Sean Kenny Dowell, his role was supposed to be sort of the conduit between the academy and the first team in terms of helping players come through and helping develop them. There's been another appointment in terms of Bran Stow. He's at the Rabbitohs. He's been there for 5 years. A whole lad. He was Bransholme High student there. He's coming over to the Robins. He's going to be, I think, a kind of football manager role. So I'm guessing Graham Hill sitting between Willie Peters and Lakin and take a lot on the planning role. I mean, Lakin's got such a huge job commercially and looking after so many other things. Willie Peters has got a big job looking after just the players and the team. So I'm guessing he's going to come and sit in between there. Does beg the question, is with Danny McGuire departing, is another assistant going to come in there? We don't know, because we've got Dave Hodgson, Brett Delaney. I mean, Mr. Hull Rockers on YouTube, he says, will Delaney follow Danny Maggs? We don't know, because we don't know where Maggs is going. I mean, I've heard nothing about Delaney departing.
Who knows? I mean, the rumour mill's going into overdrive. There's no names, though, bounding about who might come in as an assistant, which leads you to think maybe will one come in? We don't know, do we?
You don't know if he's going to get one over from Australia, somebody he trusts from Australia, do you? I can't see Delaney following Danny Maggs. I think they're their own men, aren't they? They're not joined at the year. I know they played together at Leeds. It's just an interesting one for Danny Maggs. Everybody had Cast down as his place, didn't they? And then you got Featherstone, who have got James Ford as their interim coach. If they'd have gone up, would they have gone sniffing after Danny Maggs? Obviously, that's gone to pot now, hasn't it? So, I don't know. Be interesting to see where he ends up. There's rumours of Hull, weren't there? But from what I heard, he wasn't.
Anyone who departs Rovers gets linked with Rovers at the moment. You know what I mean?
From what I heard,
the tea lady could leave and she's going to work at the MKM.
Sorry?
The tea lady could leave and she'll get linked with a move to the MKM. You know what I mean? Anyone?
Yeah. Well, that's the way it is, isn't it? They're desperate for picking up our scraps, aren't they, at the minute? That's all they can look forward to, isn't it? Us getting beat in semi-final and picking up at scraps.
Yeah. Well, Graham, I mean, Danny Maggs is, like I said to Dan, he's been a great servant to the club. I suppose it's sad he don't get the farewell he maybe deserved, because also he wasn't just the assistant coach. He served as well as a player at a pretty shitty time as a team, and he came in and did very well for us, and he's gone through a bit of turmoil in terms of the coaching setup, etc., etc. And no doubt, we all fully respect Willie Peters' decision, because it's ultimately him who's in charge, and it's him who's got to have the people around him to who he feels comfortable with, and the people he feels he needs. It just seems a bit sad that Danny Maggs' sort of departures, I don't know, almost gone without us having the chance to say thank you for what you've done.
Yeah, absolutely. Echo 100%, John, what you said there. As a player, he helped us out massively, brought that touch of quality to the back end of his career, where in a red and white shirt, thrust into some ad hoc coaching role as well to steer the ship. At a time when he was learning his trade, he got that adversity to deal with. So I'm sure that it will come out further down the line what has happened, because as was said earlier on, it appeared that you look back at some of the games and they were thick as thieves, the pair of them, with the way that the games were going. During the game, they're always in discussion with each other about things. And
well, Graham Cookie said it, that semi-final where Peters and McGuire were bear hugging each other. You couldn't be any closer, could you? You don't hug you wouldn't hug your enemy, would you? So whatever's happened after that.
Yeah, and that's the bit that we don't know, and it's wrong to speculate what could have gone on, and you don't know if it's a clash of ideas, if it's a player retention or recruitment issue, or we don't know. We could come up with 101 reasons and still be wrong with it, and look, I'm sure it will come out in the wash. But yeah, absolutely, 100% respect for Danny McGuire and things he's done for this club, but obviously in rugby in general, he's been a legend. Well, he is a legend, not being a legend. He is a legend. And yeah, just a shame that if the departure was to happen, that it wasn't in more controlled circumstances, where as a fan or a set of fans, we could have shown that appreciation for what he's done properly, the way we do that. That's, for me, a little bit disappointing that we haven't been able to do that. And I hope many fans would sort of agree with that sentiment as well, because of the situation he's found himself in and helped us out. But also, yeah, he's got a coaching career that he's actively looking to pursue. Where that will take him, who knows? Obviously, it's not with us at the minute. But we wish him nothing but the best for the future, as long as it's not in games against Hull KR, of course.
Yeah, very interesting to see where he ends up. Dan Craft, Rowan Milnes, sad to see him go?
Sad, probably not. I think if you're going to be ruthless, he's where is he in the pecking order? You got Mikey Lewis, Jordan Abdul, Tyrone May, Rowan Milnes, haven't you? He's again another one where Is he up to it? Probably not. No, he's only a young lad still, isn't he? But the effort was always there. You can't fault the lad's effort. Again, he's another one, and where it's just probably the quality wasn't there, and the brain, some of the brain farts he made when he was the main man playing standoff. It was just you just had your head in your hands. But you wish him well, don't you? At Cass, at least he's got himself a Super League gig. You won't want to see him go drop down the leagues because he's a good lad and he's served the club well. He's how many games has he played for us? He's got the start there, John. Are you just looking now, aren't you?
No, I am looking. I haven't wrote that one down, but I think he's pushing. Do you know what? He's pushing on. I think at least 50.
Well, there you go. 50 appearances for the club. You send him. You wish him well, don't you? He's obviously he went out of contract, was he? Or just let him go?
Well, sure. No, but another one where they've paid up his contract, so it's more. It's not. It's more money off the salary cap. So this is it. I said about Willie Peters being under pressure next season, monetary wise. I mean, I think this season Dan was already supposed to be at cap, or if not close, very close to it. With the paying off of players, bringing in, obviously you were bringing in Hiku, Gillard, etc. Next season you'd expect the Robins to be operating probably at the cap for so it does ramp up the pressure and Roy Milnes, you'd say he doesn't have a place really for next season because Tyrone May comes in and you'd say it's a fair assumption he's an upgrade. He's playing in the Super League Grand Final on Saturday. Roy Milnes isn't.
So you'd say that's grand final, and they were Penrith.
Exactly. So the pressure ramps up. I mean, another player, Dan, who left, Sam Wood, never let us down.
No,
honest bloke, but we've probably got to be a bit better than that. And I guess that's where we need to be, don't we?
Yeah, you look at where the players are going. They're going to Cass, aren't they? It's probably their level, isn't it? The bottom half Super League side. If we're going to be releasing players and they're going to these bottom half Super League sides, well, what does that tell you about the quality? They've never let us down. You're right. The good lads and the effort's always been there. But if we go back to our earlier point, if we're going to move forward, we need to be ruthless.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm trying to think, Dan. I remember when towards the start of the season, when Rovers let Will Tate leave. And yeah. I remember there was a few Rovers fans going, hang on, he's the future. Why are we letting our young prospects go in? And it's no slight on Will Tate whatsoever. It just shows you, though, how things change over time. And I suppose you only get a true reflection on their ability when you look back and you see what they're going to do next. And if we get eggs on our face because they've gone on being well beaters, so be it, but chances are we probably won't.
No, you always want the lads to do well, don't you? Especially the young lads. If we're letting young lads go, you want them to do well, especially the young old lads. They're the ones that you want to see flourish, and that's what. And that's a completely different point, but that's where we need to be getting to, where kids are coming out of our academy are going into the first team. That's where your Wiggins and your Saints are excelling. Now, how many lads out of the academy did we have in the first team against Wigan? We got Mikey Lewis. Who else? Trying to think off the top of my head. I can't think off the top of my head. But that's the level you're at, isn't it? That's the next stage of the building process. Not relying on filling your cap full of imports. You got to. That's the next step of the building process, isn't it? We're on a journey, aren't we? Wigan, Saints, they're all at the top of the tree, aren't they? They've got it sussed at the minute. We're halfway up the tree. It's just little bits like that we need to sort out, and that's when we'll make it as one of the big dogs.
Yeah, Graham, very quickly. Tom Opacic, new deal. I thought it was homesick. Apparently not. He loves it in East Hull. He can't get enough of it. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's Oldness Road, whatever it is, whether it's running in front of the East Stand. He seems to love it here. New deal. Great to see. He didn't have the greatest game against Wigan, but his consistency over the course of the season and he's a player for me, Graham, where you don't necessarily
notice him during the game because he don't come up with the magic stuff. But when you take him out of the team, bloody hell, you know he's gone.
Yeah, I think he loves the vape shops and takeaways, Johno of Holderness Road. So that's what's kept me in no doubt about it. Why would he not? Yeah, I agree completely. I think he's just solid every week, and he does. So I won't say he's invisible, but he just goes about his business really quietly, really effectively. Defensively is good. It does come up with some magic every now and again. There's a few tip-ons around the corners that he's done this season that have been proper wow moments. So
well, that try in the derby, the 40-0, where he just, everyone thought he was down on the ground and he pops up and there you go.
Yeah, so he's got them in his game as well. So I'm really pleased that we've got that bit of business done early. It's quite ironic that in the same week that Opacic and Kennedy were his signings, one's got released of his contract and one's got the extension to his contract. But again, the signing of Opacic nice and early. There's no speculation now next season. It's all done, dusted. That he's going to be around for the next few years. Stability, again, retaining players like that should have a calming influence on other players in the squad, and also importantly, the levels of player we're trying to attract in the future, not just in the here and now, but in the future as well, to be able to retain players like that and attract players like grand final winners, Oliver Gildart, Tyrone May, etc. That's the caliber of player we're now moving into the market for. We're not, to quote down there, we're not looking to accept mediocrity now, and I think we've seen that in evidence this season where players who have not performed to the level that Peters wants them to, they've been moved on, or they've had to knuckle down, and if they can't cut it, still then they've been paid up and released from contracts. So I think there's a clear pattern emerging about the types of player and the qualities that Peters expects, which again, coupled with that block of games of playing the whole KR way, if we can add extra quality to that and you take out players individually in that and replace them with new players and thinking, would that make us a better squad on that day? In most cases, I'm saying yes, it will.
Yeah, we'll see. One player who's coming in, Danny's Rhys Butterworth, League One Player of the Year, of course, announced last night at the Rugby League Awards evening. Bevan French, of course, Man of Steel. Rhys Butterworth, the League One Player of the Year. He's playing at the Dewsbury Rams. 24 years old. He's the hooker. Interestingly, he played 22 games this season. His most games he's played in his career in one season is 25, which was the previous season. Previous clubs include Bradford and Huddersfield. It's almost like his third bite of the cherry. He's coming into the side with Jez Litton, Matty Parcell, Lenny Ellis in front of him or with him. Interesting to see where he fits in next season, whether he's going to come in and go out on loan, or whether he's going to fit into the reserve set, or whether he might not even play that position. I mean, sometimes it happens, doesn't it, where coaches spot a player and the spot on playing in one position, but actually they bring him in to play a different one. But League One Player of the Year, I suppose he's got a bit of quality about him, and it's going to be interesting to see what he can do for the Robins if he does feature next season.
Yeah, it'd be an interesting one. I don't think he'll be playing that much. I think he'd be a bit like a Phoenix, won't he? Sat in the reserves waiting for his chance. League One Player of the Year, yeah, fair play to him. It's not the best standard, is it? He played against Cornwall and London Scholars and that. I mean, I could probably have a good run out there. Well,
that's a bold claim. If anyone's listening from Cornwall,
take a chance on me. I've got a Cornwall. Take a chance on me. But yeah, I don't think he'll be with first team, but I can't see him being costing that much on the salary cap. I think he's not going to be a bad backup, is he? If Parcell or Litton, such what they do, but if they pick up a knock, you can probably slot him right in, can't you? Good pre-season, a Willie Peters pre-season. Sounds brutal, doesn't it? A Willie Peters one. It's tearing everyone out, isn't it? But if get him into the fitness, get him back up to speed with Super League, no reason why he can't put in a shift. What do you say? It was 23?
24.
24. So he's still got his years ahead of him, hasn't he? So yeah, I'd never knock a new signing until I've seen him play.
Yeah. Well, that's it. That's the end of the penultimate Red Robin Podcast Weekly of the season. Next week, it's going to be a very special podcast because I'm going to invite all the podcast regulars who have been on throughout the season to come on, tell me their season highlights, their favourite player of the season, their favourite moments, and also tell me their hopes for next season. So it's going to be a very special podcast. So make sure you tune into that next week. This has been the Red Robin Podcast Weekly. But for now, live, love, laugh and be happy.